There you go.
All right. So I'm Serena. Could you tell me your name, degree, and type of license?
Yeah, so I'm Melanie Mosley. I have my PhD in counselor education. Sorry, I have a 5-month-old. I have my PhD in counselor education and supervision, my master's in counseling with an emphasis in family, marriage, and couples. Those were both obtained at A&M Corpus Christi. And then I also have my bachelor's in psychology from Texas Lutheran University. Oh,
Okay.
and then I'm an LPC.
Okay, perfect. And could you tell me a little bit about where your current place of employment?
Yes. So, a really good friend of mine and we started our own private practice back in February of this year. So I'm in private practice.
Nice. What's the name of the company?
Be Serene Counseling.
I love that name.
Thank you.
uh, what do you What do you enjoy most about your work?
Um, Honestly, the work-life balance, that's one of the perks of being in private practice. Since I have two kids, and I've always been one who's going to answer all my questions for me. I'm very family oriented. And so it's nice being able to have that balance, especially, coming out of grad school and everything else, where it was kind of hard to have that work-life balance type thing. Um, I like being able to, dictate my schedule. Um, so realistically seeing as many or as few clients as I want to. So yeah.
Perfect. How do you advocate for the counseling profession or your clients?
As far as advocacy for my clients go, I work with a lot of kiddos.
Mhm.
And so advocacy for them looks a lot like talking to parents, and getting, like help or resources for the kiddos outside of the counseling sessions, bringing the parents into the sessions to discuss like what the parents can do for, to help their kids with whatever, presenting concern that they have coming in for. um and then advocacy as far as the profession goes, I try to go to the advocacy day in Austin, as frequently as I can. I'm a member of ACA, TCA, uh, oh my gosh, what is the GCCA, the Gulf oh my gosh, Gulf Coast Counseling Association.
Okay.
Um, and so just being active in like those memberships, attending conferences, um, research, just anything that I can, to kind of help make changes that need to be made.
Yeah. So what has helped you become an effective counselor?
Honestly, learning or not learning, but counseling by experience. So like whenever I was, in my master's and doing my practicum internship, I was very much a baby counselor, right? Didn't really have a whole lot of the experience. But now that I've been out of my master's for 4 years, and out of my PhD program for a year, having that hands-on, like being able to broaden the client base that I work with, which is another kind of perk of being in private practice. I get to pick and choose essentially the clientele that I work with. Um, and then just doing like the continuing education hours that are required of our license. I'm also an NCC. I didn't mention that at the beginning. So I have my NCC as well. Um, but yeah, so the continuing education, I have a few different certifications, that I've gotten through like PESI, those trainings and stuff.
Yeah.
And so being able to take the continuing education and then apply it to my clients, and then collaboration with my peers, right? So the woman that I started the practice with, it's her, myself, and then we have one other. He's a social worker that works with us. And so we periodically get together and like, hey, this is what I've learned this month, how about you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so really relying on other professionals to like um uh to help treat our clients. So like for example, I have a client that I got, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, that's struggling with an eating disorder. I hadn't really ever worked with anyone with an eating disorder before. And so getting resources from the social worker that works with us, because that's one of the client base that works with. Um, and so it's a lot of community being a counselor. Like I said, just leaning on each other, and making those professional connections so that a way you have it for whenever you need it. And then of
Yeah.
course reciprocating, the favor whenever it comes time.
Yeah, that is definitely something I'm learning right now, in my ethics class and creating that community so you have resources.
Yes.
Um, so I know you mentioned this before, but could you go a little bit more into some of your practice specializations?
Yeah. So my emphasis was in family, marriage, and couples, and so that's like the foundation, I guess, of my client base. Uh, Probably 80% of my clients right now are couples. Um, but then in addition to that, um, one of my passions is postpartum depression. So I have quite a few women that I'm working with on postpartum depression. That's actually something that um, I'm looking to get certified in. They have a perinatal mental health certification. Um, so that's kind of in the not too distant future. Um, and then I'm also certified in complex trauma. And so I work with a lot of trauma cases as well.
Okay. Wow, your clientele is very
Yes.
different. um, and I know you also mentioned this a little bit before, but you're involved in professional counseling organizations, right? Which ones were those again?
So TCA, so Texas Counseling Association, the American Counseling Association, um, the Gulf Coast Counseling Association. Um, I think that's it.
Do you have
And
a favorite?
um probably TCA, just because that's the one that's more um like it's bigger. Like GCCA, they haven't done their conference in a while. It's been about 2 or 2.5 years since their last conference. Um, and I just kind of I have a soft spot for TCCA because it was my first like major conference that I ever presented at. And so probably TCA.
Okay, that's cool. Um, so are there any legislative or governmental policy issues that you have encountered that are relevant to your practice as a professional counselor?
Yeah, so probably the two biggest ones are the like us being able to accept Medicare. Um, that's a huge one because we have a lot of clients, especially like in the Corpus area, right? I mean, we have there's a lot of people who um are on Medicare, but they can't use it for counseling services. So that was a big thing. And then the what's the word for it? Like us being able to transfer our licenses across states. Um, that's another one, especially because like I to kind of supplement. I also work for BetterHelp, like it's 100% online. But I'm only limited to seeing clients in Texas, which is great. And there are clients that I'll get that they kind of slip through the cracks periodically. Like the other day, I had a couple from New Mexico that I had to turn away because I wasn't licensed in the state of New Mexico. And so it would just be so much easier and so much more beneficial, especially once I do get my certification for perinatal mental health, because there's like a very small percentage of counselors that are certified in that. And so if I were able to see clients from different states other than Texas, I would be able to help a lot more women and a lot more families than if I was just able, just licensed in Texas. So yeah.
I remember one of the students in my class were asking a question about whether or not you're still able to counsel, like online if different states, but if you stayed in Texas. So I guess that kind of answers that question that you can't, right?
Right. Yeah. Like if you're, so I have a woman that was in my cohort. She's dually licensed, so she's licensed in Colorado and Texas, so she can see individuals from both states, even though she's based out of Colorado. But yeah, in order for me to see clients, they have to have like their physical address has to be in Texas.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. What relationships do you have with other human service professionals, like emergency or crisis response teams or other healthcare systems? And how do you
Yeah.
collaborate?
Yeah. So actually, whenever I was in my PhD program, myself and the woman who I started this practice with, she and I, for one of our assignments, we reached out to a local fire department to kind of see like what their mental health resources were like for them. Um, because I used to be a volunteer firefighter. My husband used to be a volunteer firefighter, and so like we've seen some stuff, right? And as a volunteer department, we definitely didn't have any mental health resources. And so it got me thinking, like, do the major fire departments have them? And so we were able to make that connection. Um, and actually one of the guys, one of the men in that fire department, he ended up being a client of mine work. And I'm pretty sure the other counselor that I work with, because she's EMDR trained or certified. I don't remember which one she is. And so she was able to do some trauma work with him with another firefighter as well. And then, like I said, we have that social worker that works with us. And so through him, we've made connections with other like mental health professionals. Um, and then whenever I was doing my PhD, I was the grad assistant for our TechShip program. And so I was able to make a lot of connections with like um, nursing personnel, psychiatrists, just other professionals that aren't necessarily counseling, like counselor related.
Mhm.
Um, and I've been able to maintain those contacts as well.
So it kind of goes back to that. It's a community.
Exactly. Yeah. And especially like with the increasing popularity of integrated behavioral health, having access to a variety of different professionals that, you're essentially treating the same person, but you're treating them in different areas.
Mhm.
It's really beneficial to make those connections. Like I said, outside of the counseling department.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Only a couple more questions. What protocols do you have in your place of employment for client emergencies or crisis response teams?
Yeah. So since we're not like, since with us being in private practice, we're not um built to deal with like an immediate crisis. And so if like if one of our clients became um if they came to us while in a crisis, we would try to basically de-escalate the situation, but also calling for emergency services in case they were at risk of harming themselves or somebody else.
Mhm.
So whether that looks like calling the police to have them escorted, or we have the MCOT phone number. All of us have it in our phones, so we can contact them if necessary. And then me specifically, since I work with a lot of kids, that would just look like bringing the parents into the session, letting them know what's going on, and then the parents would have to sign basically an agreement saying like, yes, we're going to take our child and take them, to like Bayview or to the emergency room to get help.
Okay. What is the most important advice or concept learned that helped you become an effective counselor?
Um, Honestly, it's that collaboration piece. And taking advantage of that collaboration piece, because you're definitely not alone, even though they may be your client. You can get help with them even after supervision is over, right? So as an LPC you have to do your 3,000, as an LPC associate, you'll have to do your 3,000 hours of supervision, but that help doesn't stop as soon as you become fully licensed. And so doing as much networking as you can to create those relationships,
Mhm.
it almost takes the pressure off. Like, okay, if I run into an issue that I haven't run into before,
Mhm.
'cause that's gonna happen. Doesn't matter how many years you've been practicing. There's gonna be a time, in your career where it's like, oh, what do I do? And so building and maintaining those relationships, that's been a really big part of, um, like, myself being an effective counselor. Um, and then also, like, trusting your instincts too. I know, like, right, as like a first year, right, it's kind of like
Yes.
I don't really have any instincts, right? Those come later. But really, like, leaning into them and trusting your gut,
Mhm.
and not overthinking things, because that was a struggle that, like, I myself had, coming out of grad school. And, like, now that I'm teaching grad students, that's something that I notice a lot, is that we tend to overthink when the answer is literally right in front of us. And it's like we want to get to, like, that deep dark meaning, right? But sometimes we have to take the information for what it is. And so, like I said, just trying not to overthink or overcomplicate,
Mhm.
the evidence that's right in front of you.
And this isn't one of the questions, but I did want to ask because I know you said that being in private practice has helped with your work and life balance as far as like being able to have that family that you wanted.
Yep.
So how have you seen like effective ways in which you separated whatever you have going on in your employment versus like at home?
Yeah. So one of the things, so actually right now, because I just moved, so I'm 100% virtual right now. I was virtual right after I had my daughter here. And then my husband got a new job, and so we moved, and, like, yeah. Um, and so one of the things, like, right now, is that with me being virtual, um, in between my sessions, I get to spend time with my kids, which is nice. Because my son used to be in daycare, and so I only got to see him a couple hours a day if I was lucky.
Mhm.
And so now I get to do that. I get to, control my schedule, and so, excuse me. So if, like, my son, he's gonna start t-ball here in the next couple months. So I'll be able to say when I can and can't see clients, so I can,
Mhm.
excuse me, so I can make sure I'm at every game, every practice, like, be there for him. Um, Even things as simple as taking off for, like, doctor's appointments, either for myself or for my kids. I don't have to worry about, um, putting in, like, a time off request, and then, God forbid it gets denied, right? And then I'm put in this bind of, not being able to take my kids to the doctor, or, um, and I don't have to work weekends if I don't want to. If I need to, like, great, it's there, but it's not a requirement. Um, for me, I kind of have this boundary, right? Of, like, okay, I don't work past 7:30. Like, my last session is going to start at 6:30. After that, I'm done, because so I can spend time with my kids, and, do the bedtime routine, and, spend time with my husband, and do those things. And so I do feel that since I've been not even necessarily in private practice in general, but my own private practice, it I there's just a lot more flexibility, than, like, if I were to work in an agency, right? Then I would have to work under somebody, and I would have to answer to somebody, which, I mean, it's great. Like, there's nothing wrong with working in, like, an agency, right? But, um it's not as flexible. A lot of them, you're on call, if you're needed, weekends, even if it's rotating weekends, like, one weekend off, one weekend on, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, it just makes it a lot more difficult to have that family time. And, like, there are people that do it, right? I mean, and that's great. And, if it works for them, that's just not something that really worked for the way I view family time. And so once I got into private practice, um, it was nice being able to say, this is when I'm working, and this is when I'm not working, and no one got mad, right? And so being able to dictate that schedule has been has been really nice, especially after I had my daughter. Because like I said, my son, he was in daycare, so it really wasn't a big deal. Um, but now that I have, you know, two kids and my son's going to be more active with like extracurricular stuff, it's been nice, like I said, being able to say like, yeah, you know, I can work, or no, I need to take this whole day off because I have, you know, things to do, and I don't have to, like I said earlier, I don't have to worry about, um, like, you know, time being denied, right? I've heard, I have a couple of friends that work in, agencies, not going to name the agencies, right? But that they've had things come up like funerals and weddings, and they put in that time off and it was denied and they weren't able to attend events like family events or
Yeah.
things like that. And it's like, you know, you don't get you don't get that time back, right? You can't make up for missing a funeral, you can't make up for missing a wedding. And so like I said, it's not every agency and it's definitely not everyone's experience. But what ended up working for me and my family was me being in private practice, and then being in my own private practice as well.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking this time to answer all my questions. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Was there anything that you needed more clarification on that I didn't maybe? 'Cause I know sometimes my brain makes sense of it, but then my mouth is kind of like, I don't know what you just said. So
No, everything was perfect. I appreciate it so much.
yeah, of course.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem.